Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 198 of the Strength Coach Podcast, the official podcast of Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information. You can try StrengthCoach.com out for 3 days for just $1. You'll have access to all the articles, videos, and programs, as well as the best forum on the net. It's the only place to have full access to Coach Boyle. He's on every day. Check it out at StrengthCoach.com. All right, I'm your host, Anthony Renna, and the show notes are located at StrengthCoachPodcast.com. Want to get in touch with me? Shoot me an email to StrengthCoachPodcast@gmail.com. On the Coach's Corner, I spoke with Coach Boyle about some things he's done differently in 2016. The Airdyne versus the Assault bikes, that was a forum thread. Back issues in the rower, another forum thread. And 20 minutes of thoughtfulness, something he got from Alistair McCaw. That and much more coming up on the Coach's Corner in a little while. For the Ask the Equipment experts with Perform Better, Aaron McGurr joins us to talk about the holiday sale, the 1 day in San Fran, and some vibration training. For the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment, Alan Cosgrove is on to talk about doing things to increase retention. For the Functional Movement System segment, Eric DeGatti is on to talk about using the team approach, integrating the FMS system. For the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach segment, I have on Mike Potenza, strength and conditioning coach for the San Jose Sharks. He's on to discuss his takeaways and strategy after the Sharks went all the way to the finals in June, then having 8 players in the World Cup in September. What changes he can make now that he has an assistant, data collection, his evaluation workout, how he's using Bloodwork with his team, and the conference he's helping to run for the NHL strength coaches and trainers. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing outstanding, Anthony. How are you?
All right, I'm doing great. Hey, I saw that thing Mike Reinhold did on his blog about the kind of things people have done differently this year, and just looking you participated in it. Thought it was pretty good as always. I love those kind of things. I think everybody does. 2 things I wanted to question about. Giving more responsibility to my staff. My goal is to make myself non-essential, and then putting more thought and energy into staff development. I've established this is my one thing from a business standpoint. Two little questions on that. Number one is, I feel like you have given a lot of responsibility to the staff. Obviously, I'm not up there, so I don't know how much more. What exactly are you talking about? And number 2 is, you seem to do a lot of staff development with your Friday in-houses and your weekly meetings. So expand on those 2 things.
Yeah, I guess probably the big thing is you're probably a little bit more familiar with what we are actually doing. So to you, you're thinking, oh, you're doing that already. But I guess a big part of it is just continuing to give Kevin and Brendan and Steve and all these guys more responsibility. Like, okay, take care of that, figure it out. And just sometimes intentionally abdicating even more stuff that I almost think, unless now it's sort of a politically sensitive thing where somebody's going to get offended if it's not me, I'm going to try to not do it, because I really am trying to figure out, okay, what's the exit strategy here at some point. And I think it's working really well. From a speaking standpoint, people are very happy to have Kevin Carr come speak now. People are very happy to have Brendan come speak now. And that was part of this process of saying to people, hey, I don't really want to go to Dubai. I don't really want to go to wherever. But I can have one of the staff members come. And I think the initial thing is, I don't know, we really want you. And then I think sometimes people then come back to, well, I guess it's better than not having anybody from Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. And then the third step of that is, oh boy, those guys are good. And I think we're getting more and more. I had a guy yesterday that was in from Poland who was a friend of Nicole Rodriguez and was asking me about coming to Poland. And I just told him, I said, I definitely won't do it this year, and I might think about it next year, but I don't really want to travel that much.
I don't blame you.
You get older, you get more tired, so you just realize that. And from a staff development standpoint, I think it's just I've started to even make it a little bit more lecture oriented, which I was very hesitant to do because I feel like, oh God, I feel bad that they have to listen to me for an hour and a half every week. And I think other people who are paying for the staff meetings think it's so awesome that I get to listen to you for an hour and a half every week. But when it's people that you see every day, and then you realize, and on Tuesday they get to spend an hour and a half with me talking. But we've really tried. I'm trying to be more, even better about, hey, let's be topical. Let's not just make it about what I'm thinking. Let's make it about what you're thinking. So today we talked about speed development and Nordic leg curls and Anna's in-service. And really all of it was talking about the feedback that I had gotten, in this case, primarily from Kevin and Brendan, but not exclusively. And I think in some ways it almost encourages more people to provide their feedback when they kind of sit there thinking, oh, well, he's just talking about what Kevin wants to talk about. And the reality is, no, I'm just talking about what I get in email form from somebody from a feedback standpoint that will allow us to further or talk about how, so in the case of Anna Hartman's in-service, okay, how does Anna Hartman's in-service impact what we're going to do? Are we going to do anything different? And if we are, why are we going to do that? And that's the stuff that I think continues to make us better as a staff. And that's really my goal, is to make us better. I don't really care. And maybe that doesn't come off sounding right. I don't care if I make myself better, but that's not my goal anymore. I think my goal is I'm going to make myself better as a vehicle to make everybody else better.
Yeah.
And so much of it is, I think, particularly as you get old, trying to get stuff out of your head that's in there, but you just kind of forget to talk about. So we had some great discussion today in the staff meeting, and it sometimes for me it just comes from the ramble during the staff meeting. At one point today, I completely forgot. I completely lost my place because we were talking about we had somehow transitioned from Nordic leg curls to speed, to what we're doing for speed progression, to why we're doing it. And then suddenly I found myself standing there going, I don't have any idea what I'm talking about. So don't get old, man.
There you go. I'm trying. Let's switch gears. Let's go into, we had two threads on, one on Airdyne versus Assault and the other one on the rower. Mike, Ray McCarthy brought up a point about, what's better, and let's say the price difference isn't an issue, but he noticed that the foot straps has, on the Airdyne has a foot strap and the Assault does not. But he made a good point. I like the way he was thinking. He said, all right, he felt like with the strap you could push, you're pushing with one leg and you're pulling with the other, which is obviously the point of it. But I feel like on that's really not, who cares about that on that bike? Obviously, when you're on a real bike, it makes a ton of difference. But talk to us about this thread. You had two reasons why you didn't want to use the foot straps, which I thought were really good. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, the big reason I always think is I don't want to use the foot straps during the, particularly during the in-season time, because we're biking, and this applies probably more specifically to our hockey people, but if we're biking, say if I'm biking anybody really, I'm biking because I want to spare some muscles. I don't want them working aggressively with their hip flexors because I'm trying to rest their flexors and yet still get some metabolic work. And I know it's pretty rare that you can overwhelm people's extensors. It's a lot easier, particularly in hockey. But with hockey, it's rare that somebody pulls a hamstring or has a glute problem. It is almost epidemic that they have a groin problem. So when you start thinking, particularly as it relates to hockey, that we want to be biking to not stress those muscles. So strapping in would be literally the opposite of what we wanted to do. And in the same way, those bikes, because they don't freewheel, you can't stop. Like if you're riding a regular bike and you stop pedaling, the pedals stop moving just because of the way they're geared. That doesn't happen on an Airdyne or an Assault. So if you're strapped in there and you kind of screw up and make a mistake, you can actually get stuck and get pulled by the strap. So that's another reason that I don't like it, where it wouldn't be as big a deal on a road bike, but it can be a bigger deal to get that Airdyne or Assault going at 80 or 90 RPMs, and then for whatever reason you slip or something happens, I feel like you could get yanked a little bit and it might not be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are my two thoughts.
And those foot pegs up in the front, some people are like, what are those there for? That's what they're there for. So when you stop, you throw your feet up there and you can let it go.
Exactly. Because we find, you can break a finger, you can break a wrist. Like the way the arms and stuff move in there, if you start sticking your hands in, even I've had situations sometimes where I'm trying to press the buttons on it, and then somebody's pedaling, and the arms are, because the arms are moving with the legs, and if your arm's in there, they push down, it'll hurt.
Absolutely. Coach, you just said, this was a good segue because you were talking about how, you use the Airdyne or the Assault to kind of, relieve some, make sure, you're not like you like to use it in season. So save muscles. And Will Shalito had a thread about, one of his clients was told by his brother, who was a sports medicine doctor, to stop doing intervals on the rowing machine because they're horrible for his back. And he had asked his brother why, because was that just due to bad form or too long of a duration, combo of the both? And his response was because of the movement causing flexion of the spine, similar to a basic crunch, putting too much stress on the back. So, I guess like Will said, first thought was poor coaching and mechanics are probably not good. But we had some heavy hitters on this: Barry Masterman, Ben Bruno, Tim Vague, and Bruce Kelly. Everybody was kind of jumping in here. And like Ben Bruno said, I liked what he said. Sometimes I think the devil is in the dose, but he also teaches a gym form, not a kind of a rower form where it's a shorter stroke, so less flexion, and then not leaning back at the end of the stroke. And Tim Vagan, who's really an elite rower and like has been coaching rowers for a long time, basically said the same thing: shorten the stroke and sit a little bit more upright. Just talk to us about your thoughts about the rower.
Yeah, I think that it's almost a machine that's designed to give you a back problem. And I don't know if it was Ben that said it, but somebody said that all the rowers that they knew had back problems, and it's true. 90% of the rowers that I know have low back problems from that repeat flexion extension. And there's almost two schools of thought in teaching rowing. There's a certain school of thought where they are literally teaching it as there's a flexion and an extension of the spine. And then there are other people that are teaching it probably much more hinge-like in terms of how we teach a Romanian deadlift, if I may use that term. But so that somebody's locking in more and levering back more, so it's more glute and hamstring driven. But in either case, the wear point is lumbar spine. There's no question. And so I just don't find it to be a great tool from a conditioning standpoint because of that. And we used to do it. I used to do a lot of like the 500 meter repeats and stuff like that. And I really loved it. I thought it was at that time as good as the Airdyne. I used to think, oh my God, I'd end up on the floor just laying next to the rowing machine after I was done. But what I realized is also I would have this back pain that would, if I did it too often, it would kick up. So it's just one of those things when you start thinking, and that was, I wrote in the thread, the Assault was developed because CrossFit was heavily using the rowers in their whatever, Metcons, whatever you want to call it, instead of running, and they didn't really have a bike that would stand up to the kind of pounding that they needed. And as much as I hate to give them credit for it, the result of that was the Assault, which is really nothing more than a more durable version of the old Airdyne. Schwinn has now come out with an Airdyne that they say is as durable as the Assault, but I think for them it's a case of too little too late, in the sense that they already have a pretty negative reputation for the durability of the bike, and that gets hard to overcome when, like I said, someone like us, well, we've already bought, I don't know, whatever it is, 10 or 12 Assaults. I'm not going to turn around now and say, now I'm going to go back to the Airdyne again, because Schwinn finally, they didn't respond until the assault people went in and said, okay, what breaks? And they identified the 2 or 3 critical parts on that bike that broke, and they fixed them. And now that bike is way, way, way more durable.
Yeah. I just got the Assault because I just sold the gym, but I'm keeping the Assault for my own purposes, and a rower concept too. But I had to get the 2 other Schwinn Airdynes fixed, and it cost me like $160 or something. It's just ridiculous to consider, like, you only have 2 bikes. I don't have enough bikes to have a guy come in monthly and do a bunch of them. So yeah, these things fall apart. Coach, let's finish off with, one of the things, going back to the Mike Reinold things you were talking about, you were going to take Alistair McCaw's advice, focus on 20 minutes of thoughtfulness every day. Give us 2 minutes of thoughtfulness right now and tell us what that's about.
I think that's really about little things. So I'll give you one example. I went yesterday to buy a gift certificate for a family who just found out that their son has leukemia, which is, a horrible thing. But I think sometimes we think to ourselves, oh, that's horrible, I should do something. And then we don't, because we don't take the time. You don't go out and say, well, gee, I'm going to stop by the store, I'm going to buy a gift certificate, I'm going to drop it off at their house. And that's the stuff that I'm trying to say, okay, allocate that 20 minutes for whatever it is. And it may be one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take the kids, or at least Mark, to the toy store. And this is a torturous thing to do to a kid, but I take Mark every Christmas to the toy store and say, buy whatever it is you want, and we're going to give it away to Toys for Tots. But I want you to go pick out some stuff that you really would like. So turn yourself loose in the aisles. And that's not very nice, because you turn your kid loose to buy toys that he's not going to be able to play with. But it's teaching your kids that thoughtfulness. Because I was talking to one of my clients today about this, and I said, Christmas is every day at my house. My kids don't want for much. And I'm trying to teach them about the fact that, hey, there are a lot of people who aren't in the same situation that you guys are in terms of when their hockey stick breaks, that's a problem. The hockey stick breaks in my house, it's really not a problem. Yeah. The hockey stick's going to get replaced. Whatever it is, you lose a shin pad, you lose an elbow pad, you get new ones. And I was talking to my client Craig today, and I said, it's really hard. You have to work extremely hard to raise responsible second-generation kids, because my children now are children of privilege to some degree, children of wealth, in the sense that we don't struggle. We don't want for anything. Whereas when I grew up, my father was, a high school teacher, a high school principal. We didn't have a lot of money. We made a list of things we really wanted for Christmas, and we got those things. But it wasn't that way year round. And unfortunately, or fortunately, in the situation that we're in now, I can be more generous with my kids, and I can be more, extravagant, I guess, is probably the word, as much as I hate to use it. But I need for them to understand, and I need for me to understand. I was even thinking yesterday when I bought the gift certificate, it makes me feel good. Even if the people, and I know the people that I bought it for will appreciate it, but that's not why I do it sometimes. Sometimes I do things and people say to me, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, yeah, I should. It made me feel better. I feel a lot better about myself today because I did something good for somebody else. Because it's just too easy every day to get focused on, what's the next great thing I'm going to do for me. That's unfortunately that's kind of the way of the world. I'll go out and buy myself a nice sweater. I'll go buy myself a nice pair of shoes. I'll go out, whatever. And you're like, okay, that's really nice that keep treating yourself great, but go and do something for somebody else who. And in some cases, I like that's why I like the Toys for Tots thing. Do something good for somebody who won't know. Last week we had adopt a family at the gym, and we were out. I went out and bought clothes and bought gift cards and stuff for some random 13-year-old kid. I have no idea who this 13-year-old boy is who's going to get this stuff, but I know he's going to be happy because he's going to get something at Christmas time that he wouldn't have gotten before. And I think none of those things are huge in and of themselves, but if you can get something like that done every day, and that's the thing that I liked about Alistair's thing, I really appreciated his idea that, okay, it makes me stop and pause at times when I think, oh, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm too busy, whatever it is. And then I realize, no, that's part of I need 20 minutes of thoughtfulness today. And it could just be, I'll give you another example. I sent a video to some guy in Germany. Another guy had said, really big fans of yours in Germany. It's so-and-so's birthday. Would you just film a 10-second video saying, hello, happy birthday? Some people might just blow that off and be like, wait, that's a pain in the ass. But when you really look at it and think, well, that took me about 15 seconds to film it and about another minute to email it to the guy. And he was probably thrilled, thinking, oh, my God, I can't believe Mike Boyle took the time to do that. And then I look at it and think, I can't believe Mike Boyle would consider not taking the time to do that. But Alistair has now given me my 20-minute window so I can think, okay, every day I have that 20 minutes. Sorry, and again, I'm talking for 20 minutes about it, but it's a really cool concept, and I think it's something that people should try to make a bigger part of their life. I think it will make their life better to be doing things every day for somebody else that isn't going to make you any money, isn't going to be in any way better for your business. It'll just be better for you personally.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a good way to finish the segment right before the holiday. So, Coach, we're not going to talk to you before the holiday again for the podcast. So you have a great holiday, a great Christmas, and a great New Year. So thanks for coming on.
You too. Thank you, and thanks for everything that you do.
All right, now it's time for the Ask the Equipment Experts with Perform Better. And today I have on Erin the Great, or that's how she puts it. When I looked at my scheduler this morning, that's what I saw. Erin, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for pretending like you knew who it was when you saw that.
Yeah, well, there's only one. All right, E, what do we got for a sale?
Yep, the holiday sale still going on until the end of the month. So we have some of our top products on sale, everything from our foam plyo boxes to medicine balls, all of our bands, foam rollers, ropes, saving up to about 40%. Some of the items are actually a little bit more, so definitely take advantage of it while you can and while it's still going on.
All right, well, still a little time to take advantage of that. Erin, just give us a reminder about the one day in San Francisco. When is it?
January 21st. So, again, South San Francisco. I will be there. I know there's a bunch of people signed up already, so I'm excited to see all my West Coast friends out there. But stop by. Definitely sign up if you are in the area.
All right, very good. We are talking vibration, so what do you got for us?
Well, I know I mentioned before about the Theragun, and we do have a lot of vibration products in our catalog this year. I know vibration training's been around for a long time, but something new that we actually brought back this year is the power plate. Again, I know we carried the power plate back in 2005, 2006 when, many years ago, and then we kind of got rid of it, but it's back now. We can get any of the models, so something new to kind of keep an eye out for. And we're just happy to have that back. And we also have something called the Vibe Plate, which is, we've had it for a couple years now, but I noticed I never actually mentioned it before. It is similar to the Power Plate, again, just another form of vibration training. Some of the biggest differences between the two is that the Vibe Plate has a little higher frequency, so instead of just going to 50 hertz like the Power Plate does, the Vibe Plate can actually go up to 60 hertz. And then one of the biggest differences that I like about it, it's only about 5.5 inches off the ground, and it's just a platform. So there's 4 different sizes of it, but the coolest thing that I like is you can do a lot of exercises and off-platform training. So one of the biggest things that I always did on the Power Plate was a lot of recovery stuff with a foam roller. Instead of just rolling on the ground, I would put a roller or some sort of massage tool on the Power Plate and kind of just roll it out or hit a trigger point and stay there. But on the Vibe Plate, it's actually a little easier because you don't have any of the handles. It's, like I said, just a 5.5-inch platform off the ground. So if you're doing a lot of exercises like that where you're either laying down or doing push-ups or, any sort of ab work, it's a little easier just because it's more like being on the ground. So I just think from an angle and comfort perspective, it's a little easier to use. But again, if you're incorporating other equipment instead of just really standing on it, I think it's nice. I do like the fact that there's 4 different sizes of it, so it's pretty easy to use, and just something that we've had for a long time, and I don't think I've ever mentioned it, but it's something that we do get a lot of questions about and a lot of feedback on, so I think it's pretty cool that it's really just barrier-free, and you can just use it like a regular vibration platform without the interference.
All right, well, very interesting. Erin, thank you so much for coming on today, talking about the holiday sale, the one day in San Francisco on January 23rd, and a little bit about vibration training. So you have yourself a great holiday in Jamaica.
Thank you. I'm ready for a vacation. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to the Functional Movement System segment. My name is Eric DeGatti, and today we're going to be talking about how to use a team approach integrating the FMS system. Last time we talked about just the specifics of movement screening with a team. Now we're going to talk about when you have multiple tiers of professionals that care for individuals or athletes, and how do we integrate that at all the different levels. Now, what I'm going to talk about could be used with a sports team, but it just as easily could be applied to a multidisciplinary facility. And if we looked at it in 3 levels, you have your performance, your strength and conditioning people, you have your rehab, your athletic trainers, your athletic trainers, and then you have your sports medicine doctors. And with that, we want to first take the ego out of this. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's my stuff versus your stuff. And what the FMS system allows us to do is take a lot of that away. And so the first thing I would always talk about is the entry point. How are we getting to this athlete? Are they getting here because they went into the training room and they're presenting pain, or they went to the doctor and they're presenting pain? Well, the first entry point there is dealing with getting them through an SFMA, a selective functional movement assessment, because that's how we deal with people with pain. Doing an FMS on them will be completely fruitless, so there's no point in doing a movement screen. The goal then is once they go through the SFMA, if they are pain-free, well, what we're really dealing with now is a dysfunction, and that's where they get moved into working with the performance people alongside with the rehab people. The other entry point is that they're coming in for strength and conditioning. They're not telling you about any existing condition or pain, so we're starting them off with a movement screen, but the movement screen has a natural filter within it that if it does present pain, that person needs to get kicked over to the SFMA to find out more about what's going on with that pain. Now, once they get them through the SFMA, they may find that this pain is derivative of just a structural imbalance or a neuromuscular dysfunction somewhere that can be addressed by the performance and rehab people, or that this may be something that is a deeper clinical issue that they should not be involved in training. And that's something that you need a medical professional that can look at that and have a differential diagnosis to distinguish whether this is a medical issue or this is something that can be resolved with training. Once we get through that, as I said, there's going to be some crossover between your performance people and your rehab. And the biggest key here is that we're all working off the same scoreboard. And what I mean by that is if someone comes in with a shoulder mobility of a 1-2, we know that that's a problem. Now, I know on the performance side, there's certain things that I can give them that will help them with T-spine mobility, that will help them with better integration of the shoulder with the trunk and with the rest of the body. And then at the same time, there may be some limitations to what I can do, because maybe there's only so much I can do with a foam roller or a tennis ball or exercise that T-spine may need some hands-on work that now I need to work alongside with a clinician that can do some manipulation or mobilization or some soft tissue work that I'm not going to be able to do that's more specific. So with the common goal of getting this person out of that 1-2 and into a healthy and functional 2-2 at minimum. So once we have that now gets us to the point where they're there, and we have to have some sort of marker to make sure we're on pace. And in our facility that we had a multidisciplinary approach, the rules that I would always go by with our clinicians and with our trainers was if you're not seeing somewhat, if not a significant change that we can see objectively in 10 to 14 days, then we might be chasing down the wrong path. We need to alter our route of where we're going. Now, if we do see that change, we need to make sure that that change sticks and that it doesn't go backwards. And so the next key is to make sure that we continue to check back against the baselines to make sure this person stays improving. So if we're able to get them to a 2-2, going back to my shoulder mobility reference, but now we throw them into general population training and they're bench pressing or overhead pressing or doing something that may be against the grain of what they should be doing, and now they show back up a week later and they're a 1-2 again, the problem is not what we're doing to help it. The problem is what we're doing to exacerbate it. And I always talk about specifically with injuries, it's not just what you do to it, it's what you stop doing to it. And so it is not necessarily something we need to add into the program, but something we need to now take away. And the key with that is to always have that accountability, that checks and balances. And what that also does is eliminate bias, because the last but certainly not least important point here is that how you get from that 1-2 to 2-2, I don't really care. And quite frankly, FMS doesn't have any bias in terms of how you get there. So whether you use kettlebells or Pilates or Feldenkrais techniques on the training side, or whether you use kinesio tape or dry needling or manipulation or mobilization on the rehab side, it doesn't really matter as long as we're getting the desired result. So it's not back to what I said earlier, my stuff versus your stuff. We have a common scoreboard that we're working off of. And now we know, is this person someone that should be in the weight room? Is this someone that should be in the training room? Or is this someone that needs to be in the doctor's office? Because now all the bias is taken out of it. And when they have that, you don't have egos. You have a much more harmonious and flowing system that really gets not only the athletes or the clients to where they need to be, but it gets them to where they can be and to their potential much, much faster. That's going to be it for today. Be sure to check out functionalmovement.com for more information.
Hey everyone, this is Alan Cosgrove from Results Fitness University, and this is the most exciting part of the Strength Coach podcast, the Business of Fitness section. So here we are. You've got your business, and the number one question I get from business owners is always about new clients. How can I get new clients? How can I attract new leads? How can I grow my business? Which is a fantastic question. I'm not going to suggest it's not. But let me flip it. If you've been open for a while, how come you constantly have room for more people in your schedule? How come constantly people are leaving? Why are people leaving you? Now, I'm not suggesting that you should have 100% retention, but I am suggesting that we could do something to make sure retention's a little better, right? Yeah, clients will move. Clients will hit the goals and not need you anymore. Clients will move. Students will go to college. They'll move away. So there are things that are out with your control, but a lot of the time, there's a fence we can build around our clients, right? And I want you to take out a piece of paper and draw a square, and your client is inside that fence. And the walls of the fence, there's 4 walls: community, trust, recognition, and care. What I've found over the years of doing this and opening the gym and consulting with gyms all over the country is if somebody's going to leave you, most of the time, when you're not expecting it, when they're not moving away or they've not finished the training program, they're going to escape through one of these holes in the fence. The hole is going to be community, trust, recognition, and care. So care is quite an easy one. Do you care? And can you demonstrate that you care? Does the client know that you care? Do you know who the kids are? Like, do you know what's going on in their lives? To a professional level, I'm not saying you should be creepy, obviously, but do you care, right? Recognition. We have a bell at Results Fitness. If somebody has a PR, they ring the bell. If someone refers someone to the gym, they go on the We Think You Rock board. If it's their birthday, they get a birthday card. If it's their gym anniversary, they get an anniversary card. Anything that we can do to recognize the clients. We mention them in our newsletter, our email newsletter. We have a 100 workout challenge where everybody that completes it, names go on the board, right? So the idea is that we recognize clients. There's a book, Maslow's Hierarchy of Human Needs, and there's a book called Peak by Chip Conley. He talks about it as applies to the workplace, but it applies to people in your gym too. Is that the base level is base expectations people want, but the next level is there's a level of recognition. There's a level of need to feed the ego. Perhaps is too strong a word, but you get the idea. Recognition. So care and recognition. Trust. Can they trust you? Right? Are you, like, they didn't just join a gym. They hired a professional counsel. They hired an expert to work for them. Like if a client's wanting to try a new wacky diet, you probably had this, that the client will try a new diet and maybe not tell you. Like they might be doing something, they might be doing a crazy liver cleanse, and these wacky things that come up. They may be doing that and not telling you. Well, part of that is they don't see you as trustworthy, right? So can you build that trust? And the last one is community. Do you have a team environment in your gym? Do you have a culture where they're excited to see you and the other members? And maybe not do things outside the gym together, but they're genuinely excited to see their friends and hang out, right? That if you left, they would still hang out and work out together, right? That's community. And that's one of the things that one of the reasons a lot of gyms moved away from one-on-one is you never really built that sense of community. So there was always a hole in the fence. So the exercise for you guys is to think of the client that last left, that you don't know why they stopped training with you. Draw them, say their name, write everything you know about them, and put a square around it. And ask yourself, which one of these fence building tools, which one of these fences was the wall down? Was it community, trust, recognition, or care? You get those in place, everything else takes care of itself. All right, guys, that's it for this week. I'll talk to you next time here on the Business of Fitness segment. Any questions, either hit me up on Facebook or I will be at the forum at strengthcoach.com in the Business of Fitness segment. Talk to you next time.
All right, now it's time for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach. And today I have on Mike Potenza, who is the Strength and Conditioning Coordinator coach for the San Jose Sharks. I've looked it up, I think it was 2010. I haven't had him on since, although I might have done an interview on the Hockey Strength and Conditioning podcast. Mike, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, as always.
All right. This is interesting because we got on the phone a couple days ago, and that was just to kind of catch up because we haven't talked in a while since May. Yep. So we were just catching up, and you have a new assistant, and that led to Kevin Neals, and that led to talking to us about, oh wow, what's changed, and then you talking to me about some testing you were doing and that I loved and I thought was brilliant, and then a conversation about James Laval, and I went home and I'm like, man, I got to get Mike on the show. So this is going to be a good one. I'm loving it.
It was good timing.
All right. Mike, I want to start out with the Stanley Cup. You guys, the Sharks went to the finals last year. Congratulations, first of all. A lot of hard work into that. And I wanted to see, though, I mean, look, hockey's so crazy. I mean, it goes into June, and it's so much different. Like each round becomes so much harder, and it's like a whole new lesson. I wanted to see, number one, what was your big takeaways from kind of going to the finals, and and also how did it affect your off season and then your preseason?
Yeah, it has. There's many layers to the onion when you start playing longer in the year, and obviously you're only focused on the end goal, which is the cup. But there's a lot of things behind that, like you mentioned, what we had to do for the off season, what we had to do for preseason testing, and our backs were against the wall a little bit with the World Cup and having 8 players participate in that. And then, how do we approach the first months of the season with a short summer? So yeah, there's many layers of the onion, but in terms of the playoffs, it was such an amazing run. Ultimately, we ultimately didn't achieve the main goal, but Anthony, from a learning standpoint, as a coach, for me, it's you can't put words into it. Like there was so much to consider. The couple things that kind of stayed in my mind, and I share with other coaches when they do a long run. It's like it's a real test of what your foundation is, what your training identity is. What you stand for and what you try to instill in your athletes, male or female, throughout the whole process. Because you can't go in each round is harder, like you mentioned. Each team, it's a game of inches. It's a game of maybe one particular play. We didn't get blown out in any games, and frankly, if the puck bounced our way, or more so than Pittsburgh, it could have been a different outcome. It's that close, with 1-goal games and pucks going off someone else's foot or anything like that. So, but I always looked at each round as like, there's no need to panic. We're going to continue to do what we do from a training standpoint, which isn't much at that time of the year, obviously. but we just kept on our recovery, our nutrition, our healing, our warm-up routine, our travel routine, and that was a huge importance for us. If we had a couple instances where meals at a particular hotel weren't up to standard, so we had to change those, because that's an important factor for us at that time of year, the fueling and the rest. I know we put a huge premium on recovery, and I took a lot of extra steps to ensure that we had the right macronutrients and some other supplements that would help put us to sleep or help our guys sleep better. Was magnesium, Epsom salt baths to help with magnesium and trace mineral absorption, because we're working obviously ultra hard, traveling, practicing, and all that throughout the playoffs, and the game is a lot faster, right? Chamomile tea, tart cherry juice for inflammation, and the natural melatonin to help sleep. We had everybody download, or a good amount of guys if they were on their devices, they downloaded a blue light drowning type version of the screensaver or their screen. We had blue light drowning glasses, So from a recovery standpoint, between Normatec and Mark Pro and Compex and pumping and the salts, we really tried to make a massive effort in that, because we traveled a lot. You remember, we're the most traveled team that went through that playoffs, and we had like maybe 15,000 more miles of travel up to that point before we met Pittsburgh. So it was normal to us, and I don't think it slowed us down. It's just Pittsburgh was the better team. So
it's interesting, because I had on Brandon Marcello last episode, and actually not on the episode, but we were talking beforehand about the first time he was on, and you guys were doing some work together. I think you even asked me for his contact. I'm not even sure. It wasn't. That was someone else. But yeah, I remember Brandon was saying that. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff with you guys. Were doing a lot of talking. And it's a weird coincidence. Last time you were on the show, it was an Olympic year, and you had 8 players going into the Olympics, and we talked about that. So I love it. Mike,
and that's the season.
How did though? A lot. I read somewhere one time, and I'm not sure where it was. They were talking about how some of these hockey players, they don't even, their body comp, by the time they get to the playoffs, it's horrible. They're like skinny fat. They're so beat up. How did that change your offseason again? Because you had the World Cup coming up, and then, and you guys played later, so then you're going to play earlier. So what did you have to do in terms of just to make sure that, the programs were maybe a little bit different? What did you have to do for that?
Yeah. First and foremost, it was, okay, we just need time away. We need to heal. We need, about the time we finished, a lot of guys on the team have families, so their kids were finishing school. So it was a good time for them to kind of leave San Jose and go vacation and do what they needed to do to check out mentally. And, when I was thinking about planning, I met with the coaching staff shortly after in a brief meeting. It wasn't very long, because then we kind of reconvened as a staff to talk about what our plan was going into the season. We talked about maybe early August about what the kind of idea was, but initially my idea, Tony, was to just extend my general summer training plan into the preseason. So what we had been doing in years past in August, we moved it into September and moved a little bit of our finishing strength, per se, our power endurance, our max strength work into early October or mid to late October. With the exception of work capacity, which I usually finish for a 2-week block before training camp, we really didn't go into that. Because I just wanted to push the whole model into the beginning of the season. Because if we rushed it, then we have a huge risk component of injury. Guys would be overtrained. We wouldn't be able to make the gains. So the coaching staff was fine with that. We discussed, possibly getting a few more days of workout as opposed to practice, or combining both the workout and practice together on some days through October. And they were okay with that. We replaced a couple practice days with lifts, and we were able to extend that model into the beginning of the season. So in essence, we spent the same amount of time that we would have if we, had a first or second round run. But we ensured that we got our normal rest period of like 3 to 4 weeks. And then we generally start with, when we come back, we start with, our first block is, our first training phase is more of a tissue remodeling and regeneration kind of ideas that Jim Schneider and I at Wisconsin always have talked about, and I've gained a lot of ideas from him. So that's a great place to start from where we were coming off, and knock on wood, we haven't had any setbacks from it. As a matter of fact, as we look at our program now and we look at kind of our evaluation workouts throughout the year, we're right on par with where we were in the middle half of last year.
Nice.
Now obviously the concern is that, all right, we don't want to be pushing the gas pedal too hard early on, but with the break coming up for Christmas, All-Star break coming up, and now this year because of the World Cup, there's a mandatory bye week, if you will, within the middle of January to the end of February. We'll be able to use those off times wisely and make sure we kind of take that, miss that overtraining period.
Nice.
So.
Love it. And you guys are in first place right now, so you're doing something right. But yeah, like you said, I guess the idea is that you don't want to burn out and overtrain. So love it. Awesome. Mike, you just hired a new assistant, Kevin Neild, who a lot of us know. Really brilliant kid and a hard worker, great guy. He was at a private facility, worked under Coach Boyle at USA Women's Hockey as assistant strength coach, and now he's with you at the Sharks. Talk to us about, how'd you manage that, to get an assistant, and B, what's changed with your workload, and what are some things that you're pretty excited about that now that you have somebody on your team there that you can do differently?
Right. So Kevin and I have a good standing history now. I mean, we met through, the Perform Better, seminars. We met through, we met through you and Mike. So we've had a great history together. I had him out numerous times for development camps, and we've talked a lot about training ideas. So, and him and I were part of the business group, or the ownership group that owned Hockey Strength and Conditioning after a while. So we know each other really well, and I think we complement each other well in the fact that Kevin has brought the ability to look at our data pool over this is my 11th season with the Sharks, so we're able to look at that. We're able to look at the combine data in a more detailed light than I ever have. From a standpoint of, okay, we have baseline numbers now over an 11-year stretch of pro hockey players, and we've developed standards for where our veteran group is, and we've developed standards of where our developmental group, American League and first and second year rookies with our San Jose team, where they need to go. So now we can put more detailed planning together and look at a history of profiles of physical performance profiles or capabilities of each guy, and maybe where this player needs to strive towards, or maybe what this older player needs to maintain based off of his personal best in his career. So Kevin's been amazing with that. We're trying to track more data. We use a heart rate monitor system frequently in practice. The constraints that we're under now with the CBA and negotiations between the Players Association and the league is that we can't monitor games, which is unfortunate. But hopefully they agree to that, because I think we're missing some valuable game data. We can only make the monitoring optional in practices. But Anthony, for us, we don't practice much. We're either traveling, playing, or it's a mandatory day off. So our practice days are real, fairly low, 1 or 2 if we're lucky during a week. And in those times, the message that Kevin and I share to the coaching staff is that, okay, we really don't need a game-like intensity, because that would just extend our recovery period and we wouldn't be prepared for the game. So we almost need a low-level practice, if you will, that's not going to stress us out too much metabolically. So Kevin on the assessment side has brought some great ideas. As you know, I think that's his mechanical knowledge of anatomy and assessment work has been awesome. I know we've talked about that, numerous times over the years. So he's been able to kind of set the parameters and the standard for what we want to capture assessment-wise. And in the years past, I've done the movement screen, functional movement screen with guys. I have some experience with some PRI courses, but Tony, when it's just me with this group, 25 guys, and then trying to understand what the minor league guys are doing, you can only spin so many plates, and at the time I felt like the plates were up, but they were wobbling. So when Kevin came in, it's been great because now we can look at these things in more detail and from a holistic approach, but from a consistent approach as well. So
absolutely great stuff, Mike. With the minor league teams, is Kevin going to be taking care of that? Because I remember, didn't you used to have Jamie Rodriguez going up part time out when you guys were in Worcester, etc. How does that work?
Yeah, we went from Jamie Rodriguez to Marco Sanchez, and then our team is in San Jose, and they're right next door. And I had a local guy, Brian Gantz, who was an intern for mine, but now we have a former intern of mine, Marcello Marinelli, who's the full-time strength coach there, which we've always had a part-time, but now we were able to move it to a full-time position, much like bringing Kevin in to have his full-time position. And it took about, with both positions, Anthony, it took me about 4 to 5 years really to convince management that we need these positions, that hockey as a professional, as a sport, it's behind. If you look at other sports, whether it be football, whether it be, even basketball in the NBA and Major League Baseball, each team has a full head strength coach and some have assistants. And football the NFL has numerous assistants. And then you look into college and obviously the numbers go up. So hockey's strength coaching to player ratio in the NHL is pretty poor. But now more teams are hiring full-time assistants. I think it's definitely well overdue. I think 9 or 10 teams now have full-time assistants in the NHL, which is great. For the think about it. Your performance coach is the coach that can be with you all year round. There's no restrictions of how much time, whether it be collegiate or whether it be professional, and how much time your strength coach can be with you. So you shouldn't underman that position, and I think you have 5 coaches on a team, you have 4 equipment managers, you have 3 athletic trainers. You shouldn't have just one strength coach. So we're making strides in that area, and I'm definitely very gracious to management to see the light. So it's been awesome.
Absolutely. Great stuff. I love it. Mike, this led us into, I was asking you, how are you doing some of the data collection before and the testing? And I love this idea and you mentioned it earlier right now, was the evaluation workout. Can you give us some details into what this is about, what the frequency of it, what is the workout, and what the response is?
Yeah. So I started doing basically a workout last year that I wanted to be intense enough with the load of it and the neural component where that was pretty much our hardest workout of the month or of that training cycle. And generally, Anthony, my idea for a professional season to periodize is a terrible word because it's almost impossible. So what we try to do is that I at least want to look at Isserin and Cal Dietz brought it to light in his triphasic book, is okay, what are the residual training effects for the energy systems and the strength qualities of a hockey player, right? So given a few of those are taken care of on the ice and the metabolic component, I just look to the speed strength / max strength and strength components off ice. And that's really what that's the only thing I really focus on, and a little bit of aerobic work. And based on what Isserin's model was and what Cal presented, it's how many days can I go without training that quality? And because there's so many games, it's difficult to plan a regular schedule of training. We're hoping to get 1 or 2 workouts in a week. So I wanted to track also numbers throughout the season to figure out, okay, are the guys dropping off from how we come in the summertime with preseason testing? Because the luxury about San Jose is that, one, we have a great culture. Two, it's an unbelievable place to live. It's gorgeous all year round. And guys start coming back to train together about first week or second week of August. So we generally have 4 to 5 weeks as a team to prepare together. Given a couple guys come back maybe early September, but we have a great compliance and a great number of guys, and it becomes a great skate too for guys to skate together before preseason. So we get these baseline numbers, and I'm like, okay, well, how can we look at in the year? How can we look at these numbers but maintain a training effect and also not test, or max out? So I came up with 3 different jumps: broad jump or long jump, whatever term you want to use, for horizontal power, a vertical jump on the just jump mat for vertical power, and then the 4 jump for a ground contact kind of elasticity component measure. And that's their neural component. That's their jump component after a warm-up that includes activation, mobility, and dynamic movement. And then the strength component becomes a 3 to 5 RM bench press and a 3 to 5 RM trap bar deadlift. And we have many guys that have to regress because of old injuries or existing injuries. So we'll go to dumbbell bench for our pressing exercise if we need to on guys. And instead of trap bar, somebody may double kettlebell squat or something like that. Or maybe somebody has to RFE, but not many guys. We have 3 guys that do K-box, and we'll take the power meter, the power measures from there. So we have our regressions built into it for what we need to. And the bench and the trap bar are combined with a core stability exercise and a mobility exercise for mobility for the upper body and the press, and then mobility in the ankle or hip for the trap bar. So it looks like a workout, but the guys joke around with me like, why are we testing again? And I'm like, you guys think it's testing because I have a clipboard out. It's the same exercises you would normally do. Yeah. So, but it's really been helpful for management to see, and the coaching staff to see, all right, how much are we dropping off? And is anybody dropping off, or is an injured player returning to the baselines that they came into the season with, which is critical, or pre-injury? It's a simple method, Anthony. It's not earth-shattering, but I will say last year we had 9 exposures. Trying to get that type of workout in every 3 to 4 weeks when the schedule allows. And we had 9 exposures to it, and we have 9 data points on all those different areas to track throughout the whole year, on top of player RPEs, coaches RPEs. We have a questionnaire that we're trying to come up with and send out to the players on a daily basis. But we have our heart rate data, and I think it allows us to pull together some of the metrics that we want to look at from a sports science perspective.
Yeah, I love it too, because I think anybody can do that. Like you just said, I mean, come on, it's a broad jump, vertical jump, the 4 jump. All right, if you don't have the just jump, you can't do the 4 jump. But it's like you said, 3 to 5 RM bench, 3 to 5 RM trap bar, and you're doing some mobility work in there in between. So anybody can do that. There's no excuse to be able to. So yeah, obviously you got to keep going though, and because the data over that, you have 9 contacts during the season, but you're not really going to know anything probably till the next season, right? So. Yeah,
well, and then that's the thing where we this year we've had 4 exposures to it since October 1, which is great, and we have another 4 to 5 throughout the end of the year. But now what's nice is that with Kevin being here, we're able to compare it statistically to last year. And last year was a great year. We achieved our goal of getting to the final. Well, we made it to the finals. We didn't achieve the ultimate goal, but at least we have a good measure of where we needed to be, and we had some really top performers in the finals in terms of points and output. So if guys are off of their last scores from last year, then we have the evidence to say, okay, we have to find a way to get back there. Or what's the restriction of you not being there this year? So
absolutely good stuff. Mike, last time when we were talking in May, you were kind of heading up your hockey level? I don't know. What's the name of your organization for the hockey strength coaches?
Ours is SCAF, Strength Coaches, the Pro Hockey Association, that we're formalizing. I'm basically the vice president, and Reg Grant for the New York Rangers is the president, and David Good is our secretary/treasurer. But we're becoming more organized as a group, and have basically partnered or joined the PHATS, the Pro Hockey Athletic Trainers Association, our society. We've joined them in their annual meetings in the summertime, and the meetings are basically, there's NHL level meetings as opposed to policies and procedures for athletic trainers and strength coaches and equipment managers and just in-game stuff that we have to participate in. But the other side, the educational side, is that there's a massive educational component from the athletic trainers, and I've kind of spearheaded in the last 2 or 3 years to have an educational experience for all the strength coaches while we're all together at these meetings. And I think it's gone really successful. I'm happy with what the speaker lineup has been over the 2 years, and this year we're looking to have another great lineup. It's going to be in Phoenix in June, and it's open to anybody. It's open to any hockey performance professional at any level if they want to come in and just meet with the NHL strength coaches. It's a great networking experience, but it's also a great experience to see some of these really specific high-end speakers. Last year we had James Law, who talked about some specific blood work. We had Bill Knowles talking about a return to play concept. So those are two important things for not only the strength coaches to hear about, but the athletic trainers are in the room there as well. So we bring that synergy together, Anthony, of like, okay, one's not above the other in the whole hierarchy of an NHL or professional staff or a collegiate staff. You're working side by side with your athletic trainer, and it's a 1-2 punch, and that's what we wanted to get out of it. And with Bill and Jim, it was great having them speak on that. We had Ben Velasquez, who is a great mind. He's out of New York, and he talked a little bit about a concussion protocol and a neck assessment that he does with some of his. He's training a lot of athletes in New York City, but he also trains some I think MMA guys as well. So we had a great lineup.
And you were really excited about James Laval, and I think you had read his book, and then you basically think it's a game changer. Give us an overview of what James's work, and then we'll go a little deeper.
Yeah. So I was exposed to James's. He has two books out: The Metabolic Code, and he has The Blood Never Lies. So I was exposed to them by a friend who works in the NHL in Tampa, Mark Lambert, and I started digging into James's book, and at the time, I was also talking to a really good friend, Neil Ramp, who's the head athletic trainer for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and his wife is a naturopath. So I started looking more into the blood work idea of it, and I'm like, you know what? I probably should get some of our guys tested to see if they have any food aversions or intolerances, and because that's going to affect their performance in ways, body composition ways, in hormonal or adrenal output ways, right? So I dove into James's book, and James was talking about this, and I listened to some of his podcasts, and I was just floored by the effect. You get your blood work done from your doctor, or we get our blood work done every year from our doctors in the preseason, and we look at it, and you're either high or low. You're not really sure how all of these factors play well together or play off of each other. So James's book really brought a clarity to me, and I started talking with him, and I invited him to speak to our group, and it was unbelievable. We talked about blood markers that are related to adrenal markers, blood markers that were related to gut health, blood markers that were related to recovery ability. It was awesome, Anthony, and we implemented some of those things across the year. That's where our recovery program and kind of our macronutrient program was based off of, were those recommendations, just to keep trace minerals up, to stabilize adrenals, because we're flying at night, we're eating late at night, the workload is super high, we don't have enough time to recover, so we went through this whole period of adrenal stress that we had to kind of tackle. So I think I've looked at it in the last 3 years. I've looked at it with more detail. I think if you're in a setting where you're dealing with professional athletes or you have clients that want to get over that next hump, or they want to change their body composition, and you're giving them a diet, but you don't know, you're giving them the diet, but how do you know that's the right stuff in the diet? We had a couple, I'll share this, we had a couple players who shouldn't have dairy. And these were the same guys that I'm scratching my head with, like, why is this guy not getting below 11.5%? He's on the bike constantly. He's doing interval work. He's not eating after 8:30. He looks really good, but yet he does the blood work. We find out he shouldn't have these type of cheeses, this dairy, this eggs. He takes that out of his diet. We replace it with some better proteins and things he can have, and then boom, this guy's at 9.5%. So that's what really stuck in my mind. And how many times have we done that to clients or athletes to say, well, geez, you're above our threshold of 10%. You got to get on the bike, or you got to do your intervals, or you got to do this. Like, it just makes it that much more specific. And if you have clients or athletes, I think you'll get when you know what their intolerances are, you'll get results even faster. Our recovery ability was enhanced because when you're eating something that you have an aversion or intolerance to, massive amounts of inflammation are going to be kicked up in your body. And so your body wants to fight that off, but it doesn't have time to recover. So that was our catch-22 and the crossroads that I came to through talking with James and our local naturopath, that I was like, all right, this is the game changer. This is something I would recommend to everybody. College athletes, it's too hard. There's too many logistics to go through. So I don't think
What are those, Mike? What's the process?
I think you get into higher levels of medical care at the college level, dealing with a college-aged athlete, where the athletic trainers and the doctors have to sign off on all the blood work being done. So, and for us, our team pays for the testing, which is great, and the players have gone out on their own to get tested too. So, in some cases, so I don't think you can ask a college athlete to cover the cost of what all the blood work is going to be. And frankly, I'm not in college sports anymore, so I don't think it's probably not something you really have to worry about just yet for them. It'd be a challenge.
How many times, is this a one and done thing? Is this something like that, ideally James kind of recommends quarterly? What are you doing for this?
Well, I think all the listeners are going to say, yeah, we've looked at blood work, but blood work is a snapshot. It's one, it's the snapshot of the last couple days. And I totally agree with that. I think that makes total sense. However, there are just some things that are going to stand out all the time, that if you take a snapshot now in December, they're going to come up. Trends are going to continue to come up in the spring, and that could be for our athletes. That could be low vitamin D. That's going to be low in trace minerals. There's going to be the food aversions are constantly going to be there if you don't make an intervention to fix that. So for us, Anthony, we do a preseason measure. We look at what we're deficient in. We do a mid-season measure, and then we'll do one before we go into the playoffs. So we're our goal is 3. Last year, because we rolled it out last year, we did 2. And what's been helpful to me was we take all that data and store it on Inside Tracker. And Inside Tracker gives us a profile of each player as a team, and who's in the red zone, who needs some serious intervention, who's in the yellow zone, a little bit deficient, and then who's in the green zone, who's fine. That's for our macronutrients. But for the food panel, we'll go. That's separate. That's a whole nother battery of tests that looks at each food and if if we have an intolerance to it.
The Metabolic Code and The Blood Never Lies. Mike, are these books that I'm going to read 8 pages and be like, holy cow, it's too hard for me?
No, they're long. They're long, but I will tell you this: The Blood Never Lies, Anthony, it's like, it gives you. I love it because he gives you standards for magnesium for a male or female and these age groups, or if you're highly active. He really breaks it down as to how much you need, rather than you just looking at the label and hoping that and hoping that that's the right dosage. So I really like that's a text you're always going to refer back to. Some of the things that are popular out there now, obviously vitamin D, but the omegas and what the makeup of the ingredients should be with omega. He goes through the quantities of that. He'll go through carnitine as a neurotransmitter enhancer for your brain, and he'll go through quantities of that. That becomes a reference. It's not something you'll read it once, but then you'll always refer back to, geez, how much zinc do I need in the morning? And then you'll go back to that, So the code talks a little bit more about, health of the brain, health of your gut, health of your cardiovascular system, things like that. So, and that he on his website, he talks about his metabolic code too, because he has a line of products that are specifically geared towards what your blood work is. So,
love it. Great stuff, Mike. Always great talking to you. Thanks so much for coming on. I know this was kind of last minute, unexpected. We had that conversation, and that night I thought, man, I gotta get Mike on the show. So I really appreciate you doing this last minute, and you're doing such great things out there, and you're keeping up, keep fighting the good fight. So we really appreciate it. And again, thanks for coming on.
No problem. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 198 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Special thanks to Chris Poirier, Aaron McGurr, and the folks over at Perform Better. You can check them out at performbetter.com for other products and info on their educational seminars. Thanks to Coach Boyle and Mike Potenza for sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength and conditioning and performance enhancement. Alan Cosgrove for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment. Check them out at resultsfitnessuniversity.com. Eric Tagatti and Functional Movement Systems. Check them out at functionalmovement.com. And of course, remember, you can join strengthcoach.com and have access to the site for just $1, 3 days, just $1. You'll get all the programs and videos and articles and access to the best forum on the net. It's the best place to interact with Coach Boyle. He's on every single day. To access that offer, go to strengthcoach.com, click the Join Now button to get started on your trial. My name's Anthony Renna, and you can reach me at strengthcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and I'll speak to you next time.